Hello, everyone. We'll get started in just 1 minute. All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I want to welcome you all back to the Purpose-Driven Developer Academy with Louisville Central Community Center. I'm going to go ahead and introduce your facilitator, Tiffany Williams.
Oh, you're on mute. We lost you for a minute. Got you on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we got you back now.
Okay, you can go ahead and go. I just was going to introduce you and then let you go ahead and take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back, entrepreneurs and developers. We are glad to see everyone back and able to join us again. We have a lot to unpack in this session, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We wanted to go ahead and introduce our speaker who, man, is just amazing. If anybody knows or have rode downtown on Jefferson and saw the Molo Village, Reverend Jamesetta Ferguson, she actually put this whole project together. She's the president and CEO of the Molo Village. And we're just gonna ask her to speak about her project and how it came along being a developer, and give us some nuggets that we can take away as well. And then maybe if we've got time, we'll do a question and answer session with her. But definitely just wanted to get somebody in front of you guys that actually has developed, went through the whole process, how she brought her team together and was able to bring something wonderful to the community that is, man, being used, and it's a blessing to the community. So Miss Reverend Ferguson, I apologize, Reverend Ferguson. Thank you again for being with us. And if we can start off just telling us how you came about with the idea, and then tell us a little bit about your journey and making it all come to fruition.
Right. Well, thank you all for having me today to talk to your group. I love to tell the Molo story because I think it is a unique story, not only because of it being something new and special in the Russell community. It's also special because it was birthed out of a church using church property. And that was actually how this project began. Just as a little bit of the background, I am also senior pastor at St. Peter's United Church of Christ, which is located at 1225 West Jefferson. And it is a historic church that was built in 1894. And when I began as pastor in 2006, the church was extremely underutilized. And then as we began to evangelize in the community and had began to do more mission work, we started to see stress and strain on that historic church. We ended up having lead paint issues, black mold falling past plaster, an aged boiler system that blew up, just a whole lot of issues. And so we ended up having to relocate to another location, which we relocated to the strip mall in Russell Plaza, which was about 2 blocks away. And that began the process of envisioning what we would do with our historic property. We were fortunate enough to own a city block. And so what we did was go to our national church and say, look, we need some money. We don't have any. We're in a poor community, but we need your help. And as a result of that, the United Church of Christ has like their own bank. They are the oldest church building and loan fund in the United States. I think they were established in something like 1853, something like that. And so the director indicated, he says, I can't lend you any money because we knew that we needed a minimum of $1 million to renovate the church. He says, but I have a new program that I think that you all would be interested in, and it's called Partners in Vision. And that is a program for churches that have bricks and mortar, but they don't have the financial sustainability in order to do the mission and ministry of the church. And so we were the first church in the United Church of Christ, and really out of the mainline denominations, to enter into this program. And so if it worked, then this would be a model used throughout the United States, where there were churches that had bricks and mortar. They were in an urban community, and they were dealing with a lot of the same stresses that we were faced with. And so we entered into this program, and the United Church of Christ was fortunate enough to bless us with a development team. It's a female development team out of the Bronx, New York, individuals who had expertise at building HUD housing and other types of development. And they flew in and taught me everything I needed to know about development. And so the first thing I'm going to say to you is get someone who has some expertise and some experience in developing whatever type of project you're thinking about developing. Because here I was as a pastor, and while I had finance experience because I had previously been a banker, I knew nothing about development. And so they were able to help and guide me through all of the pieces and parts of development. We met weekly. And we chose a local architect. We also, under that architect's advice, were able to come up with a general contractor. But there were some other things that we had to do with it being a historic church. And that was, we had to go through various, and I lost you. I'm sorry. Let me see what happened.
Yes, we can still hear you. We still have you.
Okay. My phone caused me to lose connection. I apologize. And so there were several things that needed to be done. First of all, we had to deal with the preservation, historic preservation board, because of it being a historic church. But the other thing that happened while we were considering building this project was that there was the decision made to demolish Beecher Terrace. And that all happened under a transformation grant, a HUD 6 grant, the Choice Initiative. And this project was a little bit different than previous housing developments, because under the old housing developments, all they did was build the houses. But under the Choice Initiative, what they needed to do was not only build adequate housing, but they had to make sure that the schools were meeting the needs of the residents. They wanted to make sure that there were other resources that were available in the community. As you know, Russell is a food desert, so there was a discussion about that, and there was a whole lot of conversation as to what the residents knew that they needed, and so there were a lot of conversations to hear what that was. And so by us being in partnership with the Choice Initiative and finding out that information, that also helped guided us into what we were going to put in the whatever project we decided to develop. And at that point, we still did not know what it would be. But after hearing from the residents, knowing that we did not have a family sit-down restaurant, we did not have a community bank, we did not have Head Start, we did not have a Black realtor in our area, all of the things that we needed jobs in our community. All of that helped shape the village at West Jefferson Street. The other thing that we were able to determine was that $85 million was flowing outside of the Russell community each and every year, because people still have to buy clothes and food and all of the other things that they need in order for that family to be whole. And so we decided that we needed to also bring income back into our community. And so with all of that information and supporting the government work in the transformation of Russell, we were able to partner with the Choice Initiative. They needed a project to leverage for this grant. And so we became that partner, we became that project, which also helped us to identify potential tenants for our space. And so as I'm talking about all of this, this was a 4-year process. We thought that we would be able to put this building together in 4 years and move back and everything was just going to be wonderful. But it did not happen like that. It took us about 2 years to actually get the drawings and get all of the permits and the approvals that we needed. And then it took us another 2 years to get the financing and the investors that we needed in order to build this project. And I'm just going to say, we would not have been able to do this project if we did not have the backing of the United Church of Christ. A lot of churches don't have that opportunity. They don't have that banking, but we were fortunate enough to have that. And so we also applied for new market tax credits, which you know are very difficult to get. The first new market tax credit that we were approved for, we had 30 days to fill the gap, or we would lose that tax credit, and we did, because we were unable to fill the gap. But while we were waiting to apply for another new market tax credit, we were able to get some of the foundations on board to help us, the James Graham Brown Foundation and the Gaines Foundation. Excuse me. We were also able to get some additional monies from Metro Louisville and Louisville Metro Housing to support us, along with the Church Building and Loan Fund. And so the last piece of financing that we were able to get was the new market tax credit, and that was through McCormick Barron and Alizar. And so with all of those pieces and parts, we were able to close on our property in December of 2020. We had a groundbreaking in January 28th of 2021. I think I'm right. Or was it 20? No, we closed in 2019. 2020, we had the groundbreaking and then COVID hit. I'm kind of losing my years because we've been shut down for such a long period of time. And so COVID hit, and then we also had the social unrest in the area. And so we thought that we would not be able to finish the project in a timely manner. And as developers, you understand that when we are constructing the building, if we don't meet those milestones, then we're subject to paying additional interest and even perhaps losing our contractor and our insurance. And so we were faced with many challenges with COVID and the social unrest, but actually it only put us behind about 2 months, because what they did was build the external portion of the building, and then with COVID, they were able to work on the inside without the windows and still continue to do the work in order to complete the construction. And so, to make a long story short, we were able to get all of this done. We were able to pre-lease the building, which thank God we came into this project 100% pre-leased. One of the another challenge that we had was getting people to believe that it was okay to come west of 9th Street, that we could get market rate rents. And so we had to get a quality a marketing coordinator to assist us, and that was Jonetta Roberts in 40 and 1. And that was a blessing because we had a lot of predatory type businesses that wanted to come into our building, but we were determined that we were only going to have businesses here that wanted to uplift our community and had the same missional goal that we had as the village at West Jefferson. And so we came in, we got our certificate of occupancy on March the 15th. We had a soft opening where we moved in, and then we had the grand opening on July the 9th of 2021. And I am just thrilled to say that we are still 100% occupied. Our last tenant, which is Black Coffee and Deli, will be opening in, I think, May of this year. And so we call this a one-stop shop. We have a family restaurant, the Dripping Crab. Darnell Ferguson, who this was his 4th restaurant in the United States. We have Park Community Credit Union, who moved their downtown branch to this branch, and it is now the highest grossing branch in their entire network. We have Ohio Valley Education Cooperative, which is a learning center for little people, cradle to kindergarten. They have 75 slots. We'll have the Black Coffee on the 1st floor in Deli. We also have William Starks Realty. Starks Realty, his mother started a real estate company in Russell, I think about 25 years ago. He took over the business, and then they moved to the East End. They have since moved back into this location. They have Leverage Lease Properties, which is our property manager, but they also lease other commercial properties. I think they actually help lease LCCC, if I'm not mistaken. And then they have a title company that also shares space in their location. On the second floor, we have Louisville Metro Housing Authority, their choice transformation team. And that was important because we said, if you are invested in this community and you want to redo Beecher Terrace, then you need to be accessible to the residents so that if there are some issues or something, then they can just come right up and talk to you here. So they are in this location. We also have Norton's Institute of Health Equity, Dr. Kelly McCants, and it is a think tank for the medical area, the social determinants of health. And they're also, I'm sure you heard, they just recently announced that they're putting a hospital at I think 38th and Broadway or 28th and Broadway. And a lot of those discussions were done here in their facility. We have Molo Village. We're the only social service organization here. We do reentry work. We do work with our seniors. We have education hub for our youth. We also have recovery programs and make a lot of health referrals. Then we also have Sponsored for Success, which is a crowdsourced funding, which Mosby, who lives in Germany, and he has other partners that all of them have come from the West End, but live in different parts of the world, but they want to give back. And so he has his headquarters here. He shares space with LIBA, Louisville Independent Business Alliance, and some of you might know them better as Keep It Weird. That's their slogan. And they mentor some 800 small businesses here in Jefferson County. We think that is a win because they moved their East End office to our facility. And then we have Dave Christopher and AMP and the Russell Business Incubator, who just graduated their first class this past Friday. I think it was like 22 Black and brown entrepreneurs, and they just started their second class and have a waiting list of around 200 businesses. So all of us together, we consider ourselves missional partners. We're all in this together, and we believe that it takes a village to build a community. And so we work together in providing whatever resources we can and to this community. And then finally, this project, I said that $85 million was flowing outside of our community. Well, this project is designed to bring back $25 million annually into our community, along with 103 jobs. And you know, we're just excited. We're excited about this being the beginning because we've already began to start on the Village of West Jefferson 2, TOO, which will be the historic church, which is where all of this has started. And we hope to begin the renovations of the historic church with additional tenant spaces, along with the chapel in 2022. So that's it.
Wow. That is just absolutely awesome. And man, it goes right along with the discussions that we're having and trying to build the foundation for our young developers here to see that you can go from the beginning, having an idea, all the way to the end and still continue and make something valuable for the community. One question I have for you is, what was one of the biggest obstacles that you had during the Molo Village?
One of the biggest obstacles was helping the city leaders and the community leaders believe that it was worth making that investment. Unfortunately, there was an attitude of, well, we've invested once in your community, and why should we do it again? You know, it was like, you know, we were all doing the same work. And so it meant educating them that we all do things differently. We might serve some of the same population, but our purposes are different. And you can't take a neighborhood that has 9,500 people and expect that one bank, one restaurant, one building is sufficient enough to handle the needs of 9,500 people. So it was a matter of getting them to understand that additional investment needed to happen in our community. And this is the first new project west of 9th Street on Jefferson in over 30 years. And I don't know too many other neighborhoods or communities in Jefferson County have gone that long with any type of, with no investment. And so they, you know, what I said to them is, y'all got to play catch up, because you know, you're 30 years behind in bringing that money into our community. So that was the biggest challenge, is convincing them to make that investment and helping them to believe that they would get a return on their investment.
Wow, that must have been huge, because like you said, no new investments on this corridor for 30 years. And then you're coming with the idea and they already are like, we've invested, it didn't go anywhere. So what was some of the tools and things that you brought to the table to help them, convince them to invest?
Well, I think first of all, having a good business plan and being able to present that to them so that they understood that the numbers worked, and making presentations. I probably made 30 presentations over a 2-year period to everybody who would listen. But also, I guess helping them to understand the need. And that's where being a part of the Choice Initiative, where we were able to find out the needs of the community, because there were surveys done. And it was a matter of taking the information that they had at their fingertips and saying, here, look at this information. Why should people live like this? You know, if you want this community to be better, if you want these people to be better, then you're gonna have to do something about it. So that was the hardest pitch, was being able to convince them that it was worth it. And that took about 2 years. So the moral of that story is, you have to press your way.
And it's wonderful.
You can't give up, you got to press your way, because you're going to get a lot of no's. And, you know, and you get that no and you just keep on moving. And then, you know, you might work your way back to that one who said no. I did that several times. And in fact, I did that with James Graham Brown Foundation. I think I got no from them twice. And then the third time they came back with the largest donation. So you just have to be persistent.
Amen. Amen. And that is definitely one of the takeaways for the group, is that if you have a project, you've planned, done the numbers, and it makes sense, you have to believe in that project and see it all the way through to the end. And that could take some time. Development is not a fast turnaround.
Yeah, you have to do your homework, and that's probably some of the criticism that I've heard from some of the funders, why they may or may not fund something, and they've said because people didn't do their homework. They didn't, you know, they came in here thinking that they could just tell us part of the information, then we want to know that they understand what they're asking, but they're understanding what they are getting themselves into.
Absolutely. And as you said, with the numbers, how's this going to work once it's completed? You know, what's the investment return on it? What's the return on the investment? So you have to show those numbers as well.
Right. And, you know, and for me, it was a learning process. I'm not afraid to say that I had a gap in my understanding, because as a developer, I did not understand about CAM charges and being able to have all of that in place, and making sure that you have an adequate cushion for years to come. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand about utility cost and rebates and all of those type of things. So, you know, there was a lot of information that I had to absorb. You know, I was a pastor, and that was probably part of my challenge too, because what does this pastor know about developing? And so, you know, you just have to be a sponge and learn as much as you can.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And if you've got time, we're going to open up just for a few questions if you have time.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Anybody that has a question, if you can, just raise your hand and we'll make sure that we unmute you and get you heard.
There's a question in the chat.
Okay. Yes, we do have a question in chat. It says, what are the common questions that investors ask or information that they requested?
Okay. They always ask for your, who is your development team. They want to know that your consultants or whoever your developers are have some experience and are knowledgeable about the project and any other project that they may have had experience in. They want to know about your business plan. How did you come up with that plan? What is it that you understand about the community that you're in? Who's going to utilize your property? How are you going, what are you going to do with the monies that you make from that project? And you might say, well, that's personal because I'm a personal developer, but they want to know that you're thinking you have some fiduciary responsibilities, and they want to make sure that you are being frugal in your project, and so that they can be repaid, but they also want to make sure that and most times that somebody else or others are going to benefit from your project. And so those were some of the questions. Who's going to benefit? How are you going to pay us back? When is it going to start? You know, the clock is
Absolutely.
running. So what's your plan of attack?
Right. I mean, so that all that goes into your plan. Okay, we have another question from West End CDE.
Yes.
Go
How
ahead.
you doing, Reverend Ferguson?
Hi.
Hi. I had a question. 'Cause I'm very familiar with the project. I think I've spoken with you before, and I spoke with Ms. Acosta. And I had a question about the tax credit of what I guess issues came along with getting a tax credit on a project like this.
Okay. The new market tax credit, first of all, there's only a certain time of the year that you can apply for new market tax credits. And we also had to, we had to petition the organizations that held the tax credits, but we also had to petition the banks that actually issued the tax credits. So it was twofold. And the same questions were being asked then. What's your timeline for completion of the project? Are you going to be able to make the debt service for us? Are you able to do that for 7 years? Because the new market tax credit, at the end of 7 years, they sell the project back to Molo Village or to whoever the developer is. And so they want to make sure that you're able to service that debt, that interest for the next 7 years. And so you really you end up having conversation on both sides. And then what I didn't realize is then they come together and they negotiate. Because they're negotiating their fees and their rate and all of that, and then they will come back to you collectively and say, okay, we think this is a good deal. But the other piece, which we have to do for the next 7 years, is called a community benefits agreement. And that community benefits agreement says that we have made certain commitments of how this is going to benefit the people in our community, as far as jobs, as far as living wage jobs, as far as women and men and people of color and businesses. All of that information we have to supply to them on a quarterly basis, and have to do that for the next 7 years. And so they're going to evaluate your processes to see if you have the capability to spit out that type of data in order to justify this new market tax credit.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I just wanted people to hear, you know, from an actual experience of somebody getting a tax credit, that it's a very extensive process to get, but it's very much worth it. And programs that have I guess a slim margin, it could really help out and really bring things to the communities that need it. So I thank you for that.
Well, one of the things that I discovered with a new market tax credit was our project was really small compared to what they normally like to see in a new market tax credit. And so that was another thing that we had to convince them that our project was worth it, because it's my understanding that usually new market tax credits are in the $10 million range. And so, you know, that makes it difficult unless you're doing an extremely large project.
Right, and that's another thing for people to know too. With new market tax credits, the reason why the range like you're talking about is so high, it has to do with the profit that the CDE and the investor are going to get. It's really not that you can't get a new market tax credit for something lower, but you're going to kind of price yourself out of getting that help at the CDE level. It won't be worth it to them. So thank you for explaining that to us.
Okay.
All right, I don't see any other hands. Anybody else? Okay, well, we're gonna move right along, and Reverend Ferguson, thank you so much for being a part of this and giving us that information. It's great information. It's real world knowledge that she has given us. And you are more than welcome to stay on if you want, if you have time. But if not, we truly thank you for being a part of this. And we hope that this will just be one of the beginning training classes for developers, and that we are able to continue this going forward after these sessions.
All right, thank you so much for allowing me to participate. And I think I will stay on just for a few minutes if you don't mind.
Oh, no, not at all. We love to have you. Absolutely. Okay. And if you want to jump in and you got some information that comes to mind as we go through all this, whatever, feel free. Feel free. We would love to have your input.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. We're gonna continue on, guys, and we had a couple of homework assignments. The last time we talked, we said in your workbook we was gonna talk about the niche, and we kind of, went into it a little bit last week. Had you think about it. Also had you do your own private budget on funds that you have coming in and going out. List everything, 401ks, insurance policies, anything like that that you can leverage, because that's important to know your own financial picture. So hopefully people have done that. And I said I was going to come back and ask if anybody wants to share anything that stood out or shocked you or surprised you when you did that homework. Does anybody want to share any thoughts that they had? No, we're a quiet group today. I know it's Monday, but we'd love to have any feedback. You can raise your hand and we can unmute you if you want to share. Okay. And if you want to raise your hand, there's a little button at the bottom, says reaction. And that lets you raise your hand if I just learned that recently, so. All right, nobody raised a hand? Okay, well, hopefully, again, that is information for you. You don't have to share that with us, but that is just to give you an idea and start you on your path that you really have to know your financials, not only for yourself, but when you are going asking for investment and monies and things like that, you need to be able to explain what you're going to be bringing to the table, and then also be able to do the numbers for your business and know what you're asking for and be in that ballpark. Because, they will ask for it. They want to see that financial picture as well as, what is your plan? So we want to make sure that you're prepared and you're ready to go and meet those investors and talk about your project. Okay. So moving on. We said talking about your niche, right? And also in the workbook, it kind of gave you some ideas on what those niches are in the community and how you think about where is it that you really want to be. And you probably want to start off thinking about what area do you want to be in? Do you want to do it within Jefferson County, Louisville? Do you want to do it in Bullitt? Do you want to do it outside of Louisville altogether in another city? So thinking about geographically, where do you want to be at? Where do you feel most comfortable at? And that does make a huge difference because the location that you pick is also going to determine who do you talk to in the community? What is the plan that you're trying to put together? What is it that you want to do? And also, what special needs does that community have or require of you as being a developer? So you do need to think about, where do I want to find my niche and start my project geographically, right? Say if you I want to stay within Louisville, I want to stay within the city. Okay, what part of the city do you want to be in? Do you want to start your project in the West End? Do you want to be in the East? Do you want to do Old Louisville? Again, it makes a difference, and you need to know exactly where you want to start your project. because again, depending on where you start your project, there are certain regulations, restrictions, information that you're going to have to gather and research based on your location. And especially what type of development do you want to do, right? So understanding what area also goes with price. If you are in one area compared to another, the prices are different as far as value, as far as return on that building or investment that you have. For instance, if you want to, do residential and flip houses, I can tell you that being in Shapley compared to being in Prospect is a total different animal. The return is different. You might be able to build for the same amount, but again, it's the quality of home, and then what are you going to get on your return? Because one area is more expensive than the other. So those are items that you do need to look at when you are selecting the project, what type of project, and what area that you want to be in. So after you've kind of narrowed it down to location, then you got to decide what type of development do you want to do? Do you want to do construction? And construction can be ground up. It can be taking an existing structure and changing it, adding to it, taking away from it. You can also keep the building, but change the layout on the inside. So all those different variables can happen with construction. And then you can also do, of course, renovations, whether it's commercial or residential. So again, thinking about all those different levels, and this worksheet does a great job of picking some of those out. A few things that I've experienced and worked with is definitely commercial buildings, and also residential, as far as have a lot of investors that flip houses and things like that. Sometimes they get them and rent them out. But again, as they're going through the process and deciding where they want to do their development at, they do look at the whole structure, go in, walk through, what do we need to do? What is my goal? What am I trying to achieve? And what is my end result? And what's my investment cost? And what do I look to get back on this return? So again, knowing what kind of project, this helps you find your niche. And I would say with a niche, you probably want to pick just one thing right now, especially if you're first starting out, and stick with that for about a year or two, or till you get, one or two projects up under your belt. And then at that point, if you're feeling confident and you want to expand and go to different areas and do different things, then you have a good foundation. But starting off, I would not take on 2 and 3 different projects in 2 and 3 different areas in different types. What I mean, like starting a commercial ground up and also doing a flip at the same time. They are 2 different animals, and you really do need to concentrate on one project at a time, starting off one project at a time. So you get that under your belt, you can learn from it, you can go back and look and say what worked and what didn't work. So that's going to be truly important to stick with your niche. And I would say with a niche, find something that you're very interested in and you're passionate about, because that's going to help you keep going even when you hit those roadblocks. And Reverend Ferguson said, you're going to get some no's, you're going to get some obstacles, you're going to get all those things, all those roadblocks, but you're going to have to push through and make sure that, I can see my development to the end. I can see the end, and whatever mistakes that I've made, I've got them recorded. I can go back and take a look at them, see what worked and what didn't work. So that way, when you go forward, you know what to look for. And trust me, you will have some roadblocks. You will have some things that you don't do right, that you do mess up on and things like that. But the thing is to learn from them. Don't let it discourage you and keep you from moving forward. Because if that was the case, I'm telling you, we wouldn't have a lot of things that we have right now. So look at that sheet real quick if you do have it, and you see that there are different types of genres, different type of niches. Like I said, the ground build office space, a tower, 50 plus apartment buildings. Do you want to do a 2 to 4 multi-family unit? Do you just want to do a single entry level family home? Do you want to do commercial space, self-storages, medical, retail, hotels, nonprofit, warehouses? So trust me, real estate covers everything. And there's a different type of niche for everything that you can even think of. So you're not limited, but again, there are different standards, regulations, rules that come with each and every one of those. So again, it's finding out what do you feel passionate about and where do you want to start? And you're going to have to do the homework. Unfortunately, there is no easy way. There's no somebody take care of it for you. You have to do the homework. You have to do the research, and finding those resources that are going to help you to do the research. And hopefully we will be one of those resources that we can at least get you the foundation, get you a few references and resources to help you on your way. So the next level is construction renovations. That's taking the existing structure and changing it around, still using it to different types of spaces. It can be a family home. One of our developers and also a member of our neighborhood, he was also the national president, Mr. Clifford Turner. He actually, back in the 90s, took an old school and changed it into housing, so apartments. And to this day, still doing it. I know, and some of them use tax credits and things like that, but that's taking the existing structure and changing it. Now, mind you, you do have to find out, what can you do, what can't you do, what's the regulations, the inspections have to come in, what kind of HUD restrictions do you have, things of that nature. But again, it's all about the research, making sure you have things in place, but it is doable. There's really, if you can think about it and again, do your research, the numbers work, you just have to get people on board to help you do it. But there's no limit to what you can do. Some of the things that's not listed on here that is really new to Louisville that we haven't done a lot of, and that is a lot of the container homes. We're starting to see those come out. Like I mentioned, we have the apartments that are coming that actually are already done, and they're container home apartments. Then you've got other types of structures is your historical homes. And again, you have to be careful with those. The city is very structured, what kind of materials that you can and can't use, things of that nature. We're starting to see tiny homes. We don't have too many here in Louisville, but I think with the new ADU coming on board, you're going to see a lot of tiny homes starting to pop up in Louisville as well. Again, what's that look like? Building a tiny home. Where do I put it? Where can I put it? Where are the restrictions at? These are the new things that are coming out, and I'm pretty sure the city of Louisville is going to start tackling these issues and putting parameters around them and things like that. So definitely, and of course, we've seen a big boom in, yes. I'm sorry, there's some, Miss Rachel, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. I was just reading looking at WDRB earlier today, and I left it up at work where they did for Nulu, they did the container, they had the container homes and the container apartments, but that they had 2 of them that are furnished as Airbnbs. So I thought that was interesting, and the mayor was there. And so they have 2 of those container homes. They call them Renew container homes that they're actually going to let be Airbnb. So I thought that was interesting.
Right. That is very interesting because they're taking 2 different things and mixing it. And it's a need for it. The Airbnb industry is booming right now. And then container homes, not so much in Louisville, but in other states, they are using these containers like nobody's business. At one point, they wasn't costing as much, but since there's a market for them now, the cost of each container has increased. So they still, from what I understand, cheaper than the materials in building a house, But again, you can see that there's starting to be a need for them. They're starting to happen all across the country. So this would be a great time if somebody's interested in those to do your research and get in on the ground floor of them, because they're very interesting. And it's like you can build them the way you want to.
Yeah, I know
and
that
the
Colorado
structures,
Colorado has them for their homeless.
Go ahead.
And I think Colorado and Arizona have really done a good job using it for veterans as well. So it was very interesting to see how, how they've been able to really take a underserved population and use these container homes to fill that need.
Right. And if you think about it, these containers were built for the weather. I mean, they use them all the time to ship all kind of goods and things like that. So taking them and just re-engineering them to be a home, it's actually quite a great idea. And then, like I said, with the tiny homes, you have that happening, that you will see probably more of it happening in Louisville, since Louisville is now introducing the ADU into the mix of things. So again, that's getting in on the ground floor. That's something to think about. It will be some challenges because, anything that's starting on the ground floor, you're going to be, okay, this worked, this didn't. They changed this statue on me. They changed this on me, things like that or whatever. So be ready for that. But if you can get in on the ground floor and you be the subject matter expert, guess what? That's a niche that you can grab onto and work. So it's just an array of different things that you can do. Be mindful, intentional in thinking about, and be serious about what it is that you want your niche to be, and research it. I can tell you, I started off thinking that I wanted to do one part of real estate, but then when I started researching and get into it, I noticed that no, I really don't want to do commercial, because that's what I thought I wanted to go into, but actually I love residential more. Not that I can't do commercial, and I do help with residential, but my niche is doing residential, and helping our community and first-time home buyers and things like that. And also developers, new developers, and getting started. So again, you might start off with one thing, but once you get into it, you might change your mind and really understand that your passion is for another part of the market. And that's okay, as long as that you understand where you want to be at. And as time goes on, you might change up again. That's all right too. Just as we said previously, be prepared. This is not something that you can do overnight. It's not something that you can kind of wing it. I've seen people do that. You normally don't last long if you trying to wing it. And we want everybody to understand that, you want longevity. If this is something that you really want to do, you want longevity, you want a good reputation, you want to make sure that you are contributing to the community, wherever that might be at, and make sure that it is out there and that you're putting out quality. So if it is your passion, I would definitely make sure that you do your research, make sure that you're prepared, and learn from anything that, you have that you might have made a mistake on, but definitely you can pick that up and go forward. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to find out where is the information at. Who do I need to talk to? Who do I need to get in front of? And as we talk about later on, building your teams, again, your strengths and weaknesses are going to come into play. So you want to build a team around, okay, who can help me where I'm weak, but maybe that's your strong point. If presentations is not your strong point, maybe you want to have somebody on your team that is very comfortable in presenting, knowing the information, and speaking in front of a group. So we will be talking about that soon. All right, but back to some of the niches and stuff like that. I will say
I'm sorry, we have a
when
question
you
in
do
the
pick
chat.
your area, there is certain, oh, okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Hold on, let's see what we got here. What is the ADU? All right, that, and guys, I keep forgetting the actual acronym for it. It's oh goodness, we just had this the other day. See, y'all testing me now. There we go. Accessory dwelling unit.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. I'm gonna write that down because I keep forgetting it, and I'm getting older. So look, I'm making myself a note. And that's what you gotta do sometimes. Got it. Also, where do you purchase the workbooks? We can send you that link. It is Dominque Higgins. We're using her workbook, the 7 steps of developers. And we'll put that link up for you as well. Okay, do you have any other questions? Okay. Keep me straight, guys. Any questions that you do have, yes, you can use the chat or you can raise your hand and we'll make sure that we get those answered for you. Because I do love interaction. This is your time, your opportunity, like I said, to ask questions and to learn. All right, we got another message. Okay. So one of the things with your niche and things like that, and I really want you to think about too, especially when you're doing construction, if you're doing ground up, is you do have to be aware of environmental issues. And then that is because I had an issue where I had a person that wanted to buy this huge structure. It was an old warehouse. They had done previous manufacturing in the warehouse, and they wanted to use it for commercial, retail, things like that, or whatever. So one of the issues is that we had to look at doing an environmental study, and I think it comes in several phases. And they actually have to go out and test the soil. And that was something new to me. I was like, well, it makes sense. You had manufacturing going on this site. We have to make sure that it's safe for anybody, first of all, to do construction, but also future employees, things like that, or whatever. You have to make sure it's safe for the environment and it's safe for people to work on. So just kind of keep those things in mind when you're talking about construction, you're looking at a spot, things like that. There is information out there. Of course, there's agencies that help you with that. You can go to the city website. Also, do you have to do neighborhood notifications depending on what you're building? Do you have to let the neighborhood know what's going on? Do you have to have a hearing about it? And what does that look like? So sometimes I know there was development that wanted to happen in Newburgh. And if I'm not mistaken, there was an apartment complex. And guess what? The residents were not happy about that. So they fought that. And to my knowledge, they were so far not able to build there yet. So that could happen as well. Be prepared for that. To know if you have to let the neighborhood and the residents of that neighborhood, if you're building in the neighborhood, know. Zoning. Zoning is huge. What type of business structure are you building or renovating or changing? What are you putting in that building? What is the use? And if that's the case, do you have the right zoning for it? So these are things that actually you want to look at for all your projects. Zoning is very important because you can be in a residential neighborhood and you're trying to put a commercial spot in there. You got to make sure that you can either get the zoning or it's zoned for that. Because if not, you're going to have all kind of issues and you're going to have to move your project. So be aware of your zoning. And then, of course, with any project, you have to have your city inspections. Even on a flip, on a Christian coming in, if you had a plumber, things of that nature, you have to have inspections done. So just think if you're doing a construction, if you're building from the ground up, if you're changing the structure of that building or that home, you have to make sure that, first of all, your contractor has the proper permits and then the city comes out and inspects. So you do have to be familiar with what is necessary for the type of structures that you're doing. And these are just things on a regular basis that you definitely want to make sure you have a note of and that you look into. And again, that's for commercial or residential. commercial or residential. You got to know what you're playing with, and it is a lot of information. And when we talk about building your team, even if you're not familiar with it, you need to have an idea, but also have somebody on your team that can. There's a lot of development issues, things to look at, information that you have to keep up with. And I would say too, if you're not organized, get somebody on your team that's organized, because you do have to keep up with all this information, all paperwork, things of that nature. So I would say definitely you want to have somebody that's organized and that can help you. Any questions so far on your niches? And thank you, Ms. Carletta. She did put the link to the workbook in the chat. So if anybody needs that, that is in the chat right now. Okay. All right. Well, guys, we're going to keep moving. I don't see anybody has a question, but if you do, just throw your hand up or put it in the chat. Okay. All right. Next, we are going to talk about, and we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of this. Our next page in our workbook was called Getting Your Stuff Together, right? This is setting up your company. This is truly important. And I would say, starting off, the one thing that you want to do first is think about your name. I would say don't take it lightly about your name. This is your brand, and you have to think of it more than just a name. It's your brand. It's what people are going to recognize you by. It's what means something to you. So if you see the golden arches, you automatically know that's McDonald's. They don't even have to put their name up. You just know the golden arches, that's McDonald's. That's their brand. They built their name and their brand around that. Not saying that you have to have a symbol or a logo, but whatever it is that you want your company's name to be and whatever that means to you, that's what you're going to put out there for everybody to see and to know. So think about that. Don't take it lightly what that name is. Put some thought into it, some effort into it, and think about what you really want to put out there for everybody to know you by and your company by. So that is truly important. I don't think a lot of people think about that as they should, but it's a part of you. It's your baby. It's your vision. What is it that you want people to see in that? But the first thing, after you figure out what your name you want to go to the Kentucky Secretary of State, which is, and we'll put this in the chat, it's the www.sos.ky.gov. That's the Kentucky Secretary of State, and you want to do a name search. So you want to find out if somebody else has your name that you picked out. If so, you do need to change that because somebody's already got it. And you do need to figure out another name. You might have to put a different spelling on it or add a word, anything that's going to make yours different from the name that's already registered. And that is one quick way of doing it. Like I said, going to the Secretary of State, putting in your name and doing a business entity search. And it will pop up all the names that are associated, or it will say, no, nobody has this name, not found. So once you know that nobody has that name, then you can start setting up your business. And I would say if you're not comfortable with setting up your business, because you can do it yourself, but if you're not comfortable with it, I would say definitely get with the organization that sets up businesses, because you do have to decide if you want a partnership, if you want to be a sole proprietor, if you want to be a limited liability corporation, or S corporation or corporation. And there's different levels, different meanings to each one of them. And it's also different tax implications to each one of them. So if you are not comfortable with that, definitely please make sure that you seek somebody that is reputable in setting up businesses. Because that is truly important. It's important first that it's done correctly. but two, again, based on how your company will deal with taxes and things of that nature. With the IRS, trust me, it becomes very important. And then what does each level represent? And what suits you the best? Only you will know that. And if you do have a partner, you definitely want to discuss that with your partner, how you want to set it up. That is truly important. And I would say when you, yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I've had my hand up, but this is Rachel. I wanted to ask about the DBA.
Yes.
So you were talking about the different businesses or how we want to set it up, whether it's an LLC or what have you. What about the DBA? And is that something that, like starting out, someone should use or stay away from? Or can you tell me a little bit about that and the implications around that? Because I didn't hear you name that one, so I'm just curious.
Right. DBAs. Right. DBAs is just basically you start off with one name, but you like the name. And I'll give you an example. We actually just did this. One of the organizations I'm with is NARAB. Our original name was Louisville Real Estate Brokers Association. That was our chapter name here. And we've registered that way. All of our, accounts and everything like that is that way. But here recently we decided that, hey, as far as what we want to be known for in the community and things like that is NARAB Louisville. So what we did was go in, instead of changing everything, all the names and stuff like that, what we did was just go in and change and did a DBA, doing business as, that's what DBA stands for, doing business as, and then we just did NARAB Louisville. So there's nothing wrong with doing that. You just might have to make sure that your documentation is correct. You have to make sure that it is filed with the state. And it's just a way of, having a different name for the community, or, hey, later on I change my name. I like the way this sounds better, but I want to keep everything behind the scenes a certain way. So I have not heard of any implications that doing it that way hurts anything. It's just really a preference if you want to kind of change the name and put a different name out there in front for everybody to use. But I would say make sure before you do that to talk to a specialist about that and changing it, because we actually had our CPA accountant, we talked to them about doing that and we changed it. What is the state site to check names? Okay, yes. To check your name, you want to go to www.sos.ky.gov. And then once you get there, thank you, yes. Once you get there, it's just a little tab that says Business Entity Search. Business Entity Search. And you just click on that and it'll bring up a screen and you just put the name in and see if anybody's using that name. Okay, any other questions? Okay, and we did put that in the chat as well. So that website is in the chat. And it's real simple. It tells you real quick if somebody's got your name or not. So once you've, like I said, selected your name, if you're comfortable with setting up your business entity, you can actually go, again, Kentucky has made it very easy to go to another website, and it's called One Stop. And it's a business portal where you can set up your business. And we're going to put this in the chat too, is www.onestop.ky.gov. www.onestop.ky.gov. And basically what it does is take you step by step on setting up your business. And it's setting up your business with the state of Kentucky. So it will ask you quite a few questions. It's going to ask you, your registered agent, if you want to be governed by members or manager. And again, if you get stuck on any of this, you can always save it and then ask somebody. Or again, if you don't feel comfortable, make sure you get with a professional and they can set it up for you. Now, they might charge you to do that, but you'll know it's set up correctly. But you can do it yourself. And that site charges at the very end, when you get done with everything, it's $40. So it takes about $40, especially if you're doing a simple business and it's just you right now. It's not complicated. You might want to think about doing that way. But again, if you're not comfortable with it, make sure you get with a professional to do it. But it is out there. It takes you through all the steps. It asks you a couple of questions. And then once you get finished, you pay the $40. And I kid you not, they'll say it's processing. You will get an email from the state, and then you also get documentation in the mail. And it would tell you that, hey, you've just registered your business, you've set it up, things like that. Once you receive that information, there's 2 more steps to do in the state of Kentucky to make sure that you're fully set up properly. Again, you will get some paperwork in the mail. It's going to have some information in there that you do need to keep, because you're going to use that information in order to register your business with the Kentucky Revenue Service. Okay. But before you do that, you want to get an EIN number. And that is like the Social Security number for businesses, right? That will allow you to set up business accounts, to do transactions under your business. It's everything that you need, except it's not your personal, it's your EIN number, but it's like the Social Security number for your business. And you'll hear a lot of people talk about an EIN number. And the way you get that is you actually, once you've registered with the state, like I said, they'll send you the information. They'll say, hey, you're registered, Eternal LLC. And you go to the IRS, which is basically IRS website, which is irs.gov. And you will go and it says apply for EIN number. When you go in there, the best thing that I can tell you to make sure that you remember is that when you apply for it, whatever name you registered with the state, however you spelled it, do it exactly the same way when you register for your EIN number. Because if you don't, it's going to kick it out. So it has to be the exact way that you typed it in and the exact way that you spelled it, whole 9 yards. Has to be with the IRS the exact same way. And registering with the IRS, it takes probably about 30-40 minutes. And once you register with them, they give you an EIN number right when you get finished. So if you've done everything correctly, answered all the questions, put the information in correctly, you'll get an EIN number that quick. And then they're also going to send it to you in the mail. Make sure you keep up with that EIN number. If you don't commit it to memory, make sure you've got it somewhere in your documentation, because I tell you what, you will use that EIN number quite often. So that is very important to make sure that you have it handy, keep it in a safe place, and I would keep it in a secure place, again, because that is your number for your business. But once you have that EIN number, now you've registered with the IRS, you've registered your company with the state, you registered with the IRS. You're going to need both of those items to register with Kentucky Revenue Service. Okay. And once you do have both of those pieces of information on your documentation, it's going to tell you what website to go back into for the Kentucky Revenue Service. And then you're going to fill out that information, set up an account with them. And it's just so you can go back in and change any information. If your company changes, get a partner, things like that, you can go in and change it pretty quickly. And trust me, if you do not register with Kentucky Revenue Service, they will send you a notification reminding you need to register with them. But those 3 steps are the main steps you have to do in the state of Kentucky to get your business up and running. And I would suggest, like I said, if you're not comfortable with it, get with a reputable company that can do it for you. But you still need to know what your business name is. You still need to know what type of business structure that you want to set up. And if you're not familiar with it, whoever you have setting up your business, they will be able to explain to you, and they should be able to explain to you each level and what that means for a business and what it means for taxes as well. And then you just select which way you want your business structure to be, right? Once all this happens, you're going to have a lot of documentation. You're going to have your articles of organization. You're going to have your EIN number. You want to keep all those documents in a very safe place, but ready and handy. So if you need them, you can get to them pretty quickly. I will tell you that buying any type of property, you're going to need that EIN number. You're going to need those articles of organization because they're going to ask you for them. Most financial companies are going to ask you for them. So make sure that you do have it handy. Make sure that you can get to it pretty quickly. Any questions on it? I know that was a lot of information, but any questions? Okay. If you do, just put them in the chat or raise your hand and we'll make sure we get to them. Okay. All right. Let's keep moving. Like I said, we want to make sure that you are prepared for every aspect of it as much as we can prepare you. So once you have your EIN number, let's go to the bank. Let's set you up a business account. And again, this is one of those places where they're going to ask you for your EIN number and possibly your articles of organization. So they definitely will ask you for that information. You want to go to the bank, you set up your bank account. It's a business account. You're going to give them the name of your company, and you're going to give them the EIN number. And it is very important to have a business account and keep track of that. I would tell you to make sure you talk again to CPA or accountant on how you need to manage that business bank account, because it does matter and it does make a difference. You definitely don't want to be doing something in your business bank account and get audited by the IRS or anything like that. So make sure you understand how to manage your bank account with your business. You do want to keep track of your expenses. One way to do that is track them through your bank account, how you have things coming in and out. Again, remember we talked about P&Ls, profit and loss statements. Well, one of those things is keeping track of what you spend it on, and then how much money that you have coming into your account as well once your business is up and running, because that's going to be truly important when you're doing investments and you continue to grow and do investments and development. So whatever, they're going to look at how you handle those funds and that money too. And then when you have a record of things going in and out, when you do your P&L, it's very easy to do a P&L if you keep everything organized, updated, and straight. And if you are not able to, it's another good person to have on your team is an accountant or somebody that can do taxes or a bookkeeper. Whatever you feel like you need to help you organize that bank account and all the expenditures and your expenses, as well as funds that are coming in. Because again, when you go to do your taxes, that's going to be very important too, to show what you spent money on, because they can tell you, hey, what can I use as a deduction and what can I not use as a deduction? So absolutely. And I will tell you one of the things too, on the investment side, if you're doing, residential sales or something like that, or want to do a flip, or you want to go out and buy something, it is very important as a business, you have to decide, what your deductions are going to be and things like that. But if you show too many deductions and you took a loss, when you try to go buy anything or invest, guess what they're looking at? They're looking at your tax returns. And if your tax returns don't show that you made any money or only a little bit of money, guess what? You don't have any buying power. So be very careful when you're you're doing your taxes, make sure you really, I cannot stress that enough, to make sure that you are talking to your tax preparer and your accountant about that. Because again, you want to make sure that you're leveraging everything that you have in order to meet your goals, what you're trying to develop in your financials, and what you're trying to achieve as far as with development and whatever project that you're working on. So you have to be really careful on taking those deductions. I'm not giving any tax advice. I'm just telling you to make sure you talk to a qualified person on how you should handle that. Okay. Any questions on that? Again, setting up your bank account is fairly, very easy, but you do want to make sure that you're managing it correctly. You might want to look into getting a software. Of course, everybody kind of know QuickBooks and Quickens and things like that. So those are always very helpful, especially if you're not doing a lot and you can manage it yourself and you understand it. That could be a savings, but you definitely want to have somebody in your corner that you can go talk to about it as well. Any questions on that, guys? Come on, no questions? No questions? Okay, we're gonna keep moving. All right. One of the things too, when you set up your business, that you will have is an annual report. The state will require you to do an annual report every year. It comes out, usually you have to get it done by June. And they will send you a little notification either by email or by mail about your annual report. Basically, they're really simple. If you haven't changed anything about your company, anything like that, you can actually do it all online. You go in, you sign it because it's still the same information. And the state of Kentucky is $15, $15 to update that and renew it. And that keeps you in good standing with the state. So that's one of the things, if you don't do that, that can knock you out of a good standing, being active real quick. So make sure it's real simple. I kid you not. It takes all of like 1 minute to do. You can go in on the state, do it real quick, sign it online, pay the $15, you're good to go. But that is one thing to make sure that you do keep up, okay? Very simple, but if you do have questions on it, not a problem again. The same people that set up your business will be able to tell you how to do that annual report. Okay. The other thing, and we're gonna wrap it up, but I definitely want to hear any questions that you guys have, anything that you've been dying to know about, you know, setting up your business, you know, your bank account, your EIN, any of that, anything of that nature, please ask. Now's the time to ask any questions that you have. But again, you want to have a good accountant. You want to have, one of the things definitely you want to have, depending on, especially if you're going to be a developer, an investor, anything of that nature, you want to have insurance on your company. Insurance on your company. You can get that from any person that you get your regular insurance from. They can tell you about business insurance, okay? That is a must. That just ensures and protects you in case somebody files a lawsuit, or if you are, you know, out on the property, things of that nature, is covered, your business is covered. So make sure you look into business insurance as you're setting up your business. So once you got everything set up, the next thing I would tell you to go do is talk to an insurance agent and get that insurance for your business. You might find that it doesn't cost a whole lot to be covered, and it usually it's a yearly premium. Please look into that. Make sure that you're covered, because as one of the things too, as you're developing and you pick your projects and things like that, you want to be a reputable company and you want to make sure that you're covered. Anything that happens under your umbrella is covered. So again, take that time to do your research and talk to your insurance agent and get that insurance. Okay, we have a question. You have an example of an annual report to share. Actually, I do not, because I do it online. And like I said, you just go in online, and if nothing has changed with your company, it'll just ask you to sign, which basically type your name in and you hit enter and you pay $15. And I think in the mail, normally what you get is a little small postcard, not even that big, and you can sign it if you haven't changed anything and send it back in with $15. So it is not a big ordeal. It's not a big long report or anything like that. It's usually like a little small card, and it asks you if you had any changes or anything like that, and you sign it and send it back in. Same thing when you go online, it asks you if you had any changes, if you want to change anything. And if not, you just type your name in, pay $15 and turn it in. If you do have some changes, say that, you know what, you're changing because it asks you for a registered agent, and a registered agent is basically somebody who's going to be responsible for getting any mail that's come into your company. You know, if the state had to send you any kind of legal mail, or, you know, even the report, a registered agent is that person that's going to get that. And say if you want to change that person, say that person is no longer a part of or wants to be responsible, and you need to change the name on it, you just go in, change the name, and they will update that information. And again, you sign it, pay the $15, and you're pretty much finished. So it is not anything that is going to take a whole lot of time. Now, the bigger you get, the more things that you will have to do, and you definitely need somebody in your corner as far as that can handle those documents and things like that. But starting out, it should not be anything that's major for you. Any other questions on that? I would say the question is, should you get insurance now or when we get our first project lined up? I would get insurance after you have started your business. That will, because you don't want to wait till you get a project, you want to wait and go ahead and have that in place. So when you go getting financed, you can show that you've got the insurance, that you're already ready. So I would say as soon as you can, get that insurance, especially if you have people that are going to be working for you even before you get your project. You want to make sure that your company is covered, because you never know when somebody might feel some type of way and might try to sue you or something like that. So my recommendation is get it as soon as you can, after you have started your business and you've registered with the city as far as the Kentucky Revenue Service and also the state. And you can call any insurance company, like I said, and ask them about it and how much coverage do you need and things like that, and they'll be able to help you. Let's see. We can try to get a copy of that annual report to share just so you can see it. Yes, we'll try to get that for you and have it ready for you for the next class on Wednesday. Any other questions? The other thing I would say to have in your corner, if you can, is an attorney. Maybe not one on retainer, but one that you've kind of scouted out and you'll feel comfortable going and ask any questions to. A lot of them will answer basic questions. But if you want to put one on retainer, again, that's an expense. You want to make sure that you are able to afford that and things like that, but you need to at least have one that you can go to, because that is really important to have. And you just never know what may come up, especially if you are going to be in this line of business. There are all kinds of things that might pop up. Even with me, I make sure that I do have somebody that I can go talk to in case there is some type of issue or there's a real estate law that I don't understand. I like to go and ask, okay, well, how does this work? What is the rules and regulations on this? So it's always good to have an attorney that you feel comfortable with that's, in that vein. And I would say a real estate attorney that you can on top with, because there's going to be questions that come up that you might think that you understand, or might think that you understand the regulation or the rule, but it's always good to have somebody in your corner that you can definitely go and ask and see how it's going to play out, and help you make that decision on which way you should go. So again, just to be thinking about, because a lot of people don't think that they are going to need an attorney until, they need an attorney. Have it already lined up before you need an attorney. That way you make that connection. And if you do, you're already ready. And I've called the attorney plenty of times, not because I've so much had a problem with somebody trying to sue me, or I've done something wrong, or they've done something wrong, but I just had one just to ask a question because I didn't understand something in real estate and how the law worked, or was it vague, to make sure that I was protecting myself and my client. So I just made sure I reached out to an attorney. You definitely have those three: an accountant, insurance person, and an attorney on hand. And that's probably for any business, any business that you have. Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
All right, a complicated one. So in Louisville, we've always seemed to have people that are against developing something, some reason or another. Typically, if you have a project and you make an announcement and you want to move forward, and then somebody is either suing or trying to stop the project from going forward. Besides legal costs at that point, or do you think most of those folks are incurring other costs associated with the project that, like, because I know, like, for example, if you had a loan and you told them you wanted to start a project at a certain day or a certain time, and then you're supposed to make a payment by a certain time, and then maybe actually even before that could even get started. Are they paying those kind of monies or fees as well? They losing? I'm just trying to get an idea, if I was wanting to do something major, if I run into that, like, how much would that could that impact a project money-wise, monetarily wise?
Right. Right. And I would say normally if you have to make an announcement to, the residents and things like that, you're going to do it before, hopefully before you get financed, but it still will mess up your timeline if it is long and drawn out, things like that. So it could push back your whole timeline. And that does take another look at, okay, if we was planning on starting in April and finishing by next April because it's going to be spring, and now it's pushing it to, June or something like that, that can definitely change your whole timeline. And, then you're pushing into the summer where if you're trying to do any kind of construction or whatever, that's usually like a very busy time. So absolutely, it could affect your whole timeline, and it could mean, hey, I can't get things done on a timely manner, and it could affect your bottom line. Unfortunately, there's no way to calculate it, but you do want to plan as best you can for any delays that may happen. So that's why you want to do your research up front to see if there is a notification that you do have to put out to the public. And then how long do you have to put that notification out? And once the notification is in, when do we have to, hear by, or when can we close it out, basically, if nobody, has any problem with it or whatever, and then we can start our project. So as best as you can, you do want to plan that and put that in your timeline. But of course, plan for the worst too. Hope for the best, plan for the worst. But it can affect your timeline. I wouldn't say that it would affect your loan too much if you haven't started that loan and you've already put the notices out to the public, if that makes sense.
Right. Now, the only thing that I was thinking about, and maybe there's a way you can structure the real estate purchase agreement, That is, if you're trying to purchase land to do something, and you're going through that whole process, and then one of the processes, like, okay, we've got to put a statement out about what we're planning on doing here. Can you structure the real estate contract to where if something happens like that and it doesn't get approved, that you don't have to go forward with purchasing the property? Or would that already be too late where they've actually had to purchase the property anyway?
Right, right. Pretty much with any real estate deal, there are certain criteria that you have to meet. And if you don't meet that criteria, then yeah, that just kills the deal automatically. And that probably is one of the deal breakers, is that, we have to get this passed first before we can move forward with the project. And if the community says no, and they've got a strong support system and is voted against it, then guess what? You are not going to be able to purchase and buy and do it for that thing. Not saying you can't purchase the land, you just won't be able to do that type of project that you was trying to do.
Right.
But yeah, it probably will kill the deal.
Okay.
Any other questions? Good question.
Hey, Tiffany, this is Kevin Fields. I didn't have a question, but I did want to make a comment, and partly in response to the previous discussion, the question that the gentleman made with regard to community rising up against a project and how that might affect the project and whether it could ultimately cost the project money and maybe even cost the project a deal. That is a reality that developers have to deal with. And there's no exact science to it, but just based on experience, just a word of advice to developers is to make sure that whenever you're speculating on a deal, that you do engage a community with respect to that deal, just to assess need for it, just to be able to validate the feasibility of it from a need standpoint and to document that. And I think often that adds value to your deal when you go for financing, that you have, validated and documented that you've got community buy-in for the project. Now, the other side of it is once you actually get financed for a deal, then from there, if you've got land control and you've got your financing, it's probably best not to invite a community involvement at that point, because you do run the risk, although you're going to have exposure no matter what to community involvement. But your fallback position would be that you would have gotten feedback from community, when you did your need assessment, and you would have validated that, you would have documented that. But that could be a harsh reality that, when you're in a neighborhood and the conditions are such that folk don't have faith in you as the developer or in whatever your project is, it can cause, I've seen it cause delays at a minimum. And it does sometimes result in decisions being made. We all know about the Walmart project where it was opposition for that development, and it ultimately turned out to be a decision made by the developer, being Walmart at that time, not to go forward with the project. So I think it's one of those things, depends on the size of your project, the scale of your project, the nature of it, the location of it, but it's best to do your homework and get community input ahead of going for financing. That way you would have done that due diligence and hopefully would have avoided any unforeseen opposition. So I'll just give you that thought.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Great information. Good question. Any other questions?
Well, of course, I have more, but no, it's not. I'm thinking
That's what
about
we're here
different
for.
things. Well, I don't know. It's not even a question, but I'll just throw a comment out there. Preservation, as I know was mentioned earlier, about particular buildings being on certain lists, and I know certain ways you have to build historic homes in old Louisville. But then sometimes I think of the cost that could be associated with working with a historic building or historic neighborhood, and the way they want you to do things could cost more than what the cost would incur. Has there ever been any kind of monies that could have been going, that could go potentially go towards something like that when you're dealing with a preservationist type community? Or you just have to suck it up?
Believe it or not, I have not heard of anything financially at the, our regular banking institutes or anything like that. But that doesn't mean that they don't have a product. That will be one that you probably will have to call around, do some research on. But probably where you would find a lot of support is probably a lot of the individual private organizations. Depending on what you're trying to do with the building itself, if you're trying to just bring it back, or if you're going to use it for a certain purpose, things like that or whatever, you'd be surprised how many people will get behind the cause and help you out with it. But like I said, financially, I don't know of any products that would help with that, but that does not mean that they don't exist. I just haven't ran into that yet. But again, like we do everything, we just shop around. We use Google, we call loan officers and find out if they do have anything of that nature. I'm pretty sure they do because people have done it. It's just probably not something that's widespread.
Right, yeah. I was just thinking about some of the different projects that were done in Louisville, and I just remember different people fighting over them, and I think nobody's done anything, just built them for 40 years. So you got somebody that wants to come and do something, you want to stop them? That makes no sense to me, but yeah. Okay, and just one more
Right.
question, comment.
Absolutely.
The when you mentioned earlier about somebody that had to there was an issue with a particular property that they were looking to do some building on, and basically they ran into some soil contamination. Just out of curiosity, was that Park Hill?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No, it wasn't. Actually, it wasn't.
Okay.
And they did the first phase test, and it actually came back fine. But it was still a concern. So that is something that you have to think about when you are doing something that's been previously built on, or like you said, some areas that we might know that is not, that needs a soil test done on. So absolutely. But it wasn't Park Hill.
Okay. All right. Okay, last one. I'm serious. I'm gonna be done.
Good question. Any other questions?
I think I know the answer, but properties that are owned by the city of Louisville, or maybe I don't know if it'd be the state in Kentucky. If you wanted to do work with one of those properties, I think I know where you do that. I'm looking at the land bank website, but is that where you would start if you have a potential project that you would like to do for the city-owned property?
The land bank is one of the organizations that they do sell the properties that they do own, and that's where you hear about the dollar properties. And one of the things with the land bank is that you have to fill out the application, tell them what you want to do with the property, and then you do have to have and show a certain amount of funds that you have available already in account to start the project. So when you hear people say, "Oh, I bought this house for $1," yes, they probably did from the land bank, but it is also one that, you do have to show funds and have a plan on what you're going to do with that property. So they don't just give it to you for $1.
Right.
But yes, Louisville Land Bank is one that does own the houses, and you can go to the website and find out what they have.
Okay. It's not that, but they're like, I think it's like a request for something. But yeah, because I've tried to buy land bank properties several times, and it's a pain because they they go quick. They're all pretty much gone now. If you looked over the last 2 years, they went from having several hundred to like one. I cannot think of what it's called, but I'll look at it. I know I seen something on there, and I'll try to remember for next time. Okay, that's my last question. Oh, somebody got it.
Okay, no problem. And there's a few comments in the chat saying that Job Corp land is up for sale in Kentucky. I'm not sure how you locate that, but that is good information. I never knew about that. So that's something that we can do some research and kind of look into. And then let's see, the other question was, hold on, let me get back to it. Oh, said Donovan Taylor, who is actually with One West, can also assist with land bank questions and the process and things like that. So that's a good resource, One West. And One West is one of our partners of this program as well. So that's awesome. We'll see if we can, hopefully we'll have him on as a guest speaker and we can ask him more questions. Another question was, when you buy land bank properties, how much do you have to have in the bank? From my last information, it was at least about 40,000. That might be a little bit different now, but we can definitely find out.
I can tell you.
What'd you say? Go ahead.
I can tell you. So
Go ahead.
Each one is different based on what they have an estimated repair value of that property. So they'll have a number that they think it would cost to fix that property. So you have to have that, at least that amount is what you have to have. The last one that came up was 67,000. So you have to have it or show proof of funds that you can get it, that amount for repair of the property.
Awesome. So that's good information. So again, it's not as simple as people make it sound like, oh, I just bought this property for $1. You probably did, but you had to submit the plan. You had to fill out the application. If I'm not mistaken, it's on a point system based on how you fill out that application and things like that. And then, of course, having the funds available as well. And then based on that, however many people is looking to get that same property, they do the point system, and whoever has the most points is the one that's awarded that property. Any other questions?
Yeah, Tiffany, if I could add just a comment on that.
All right, party people. Well, sure. Yes, sir.
I don't know if you could hear me. I just want to add a brief comment on the question about.
I think we lost you. Okay, now we can.
Am I breaking up? Yeah, I wanted to ask
a little bit, but we got you back.
Land bank, and they are the Develop Louisville is also one of our stakeholders that have partnered with the project, and they had offered to be a part of the program such that they would be willing to streamline the application process for our graduates. So I really appreciate the comments that are coming up and the questions that are coming up from the land bank, because that could help to frame up what we would recommend to them that would help to streamline their process. I wouldn't want our clients to get concerned about, when you hear about you need to have $40,000 or $60,000 in the bank, which is probably very true what has been stated, that you have to be able to show financial feasibility to actually turn the property that you're looking to acquire. So, but that may manifest in the form of a statement of commitment from a bank that agrees to finance your project. And so there's ways to substantiate that versus saving up that much money in cash. And so I just wanted to for us to hold on to that conversation so that when we get Develop Louisville to the class, that we can really dive into this discussion further.
Yes, and just to let you know, that's exactly what I put in. So I have an approval letter from the bank stating that I had already been pre-approved to and they, have given me a certain amount I can go up to, and that's what they did.
Thank you, Will. And we appreciate your questions, so please don't stop. And yeah, keep it coming.
Okay.
Yeah, don't stop. That's what this class, this program is all about. Questions, sharing information, resources, all to make us better in trying to achieve our goals. So don't be shy. Feel free to raise your hands, ask questions, put it in the chat, interact with us, and make sure you do your homework. The homework is not for us, it's for you, to make sure that you're ready, okay? So next class, Wednesday, March
Tiffany.
2nd. Oh, yes, go ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead, Rachel.
I'm sorry. And I think you're right. She does have a delay. But I wanted to know if we were going to learn any more about, since so many of us are new, if we might learn anything about the commissioner's sale and how that process works. And what is required for us.
The commissioner sale?
Yes. And what
is that what you said? The commissioner sale?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yes, ma'am. We can definitely tackle that. Let me see. I don't think we had that on our agenda, but I will put it in there. And yes, we can talk in depth about the commissioner sale and how that works and how to be prepared for that as well. So absolutely, we can do that. Yes, and I think what we'll do is, let's see. Go ahead. Let's just put that in the next session. I'll put that in the next session. We'll start off with that. Writing that down, commissioner sale. Okay, so Wednesday we'll start off with commissioner sale and discussing that whole process. And then we'll go into our topics for Wednesday, which again is kind of building your team, basically, assessing what you bring to the table, and learning your strengths and weaknesses, and then building that team on what else that you need that's going to help and strengthen and grow your business and your team. So that's going to be some self-reflection right there. So do your homework on it, and we would love to have a lot of participation on that Wednesday. Tell us what you think, what you found out about yourself. What do you feel like you need in building your team? And then we're going to talk about the team as well. Who do you need on your team? And you heard Reverend Ferguson say this, that was truly important. Because who you have around you and their knowledge and their information is going to help you get to where you need to be at. Yeah, what's that? Oh, shoot, I apologize. I've been in and out. Might be my connection in here. Hopefully the recording is better.
Yeah, you're fine for the recording. I think you're just delayed hearing us.
Okay. Okay. Absolutely. Well, go back and look at the recording, and I will make sure that, see if I can get a better connection for the next class. And with that, guys, I will let everybody go if we don't have any other questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Have a great one.